Hey everyone, I brought my coffee with me just to make sure that I'm good to go after lunch. So I'm going to start off by giving a short introduction about myself, and then I'm going to hand it over to Shehzad. My name is Sharif Ali. I'm the project manager for a real estate development company in Egypt. It's called KVRD, which is short for Knowledge, Vision, Research, Developments. I am also a managing partner in a facility and property management company called Property Mind, where we manage different types of properties in different sectors, be it residential, commercial, or retail sectors in Egypt. Shahzad?
Good afternoon, all, and assalamu alaikum. I'm a partner at Knight Frank in the Strategic Consulting Division. I look after healthcare, education, and real estate for the GCC region and a bit of Africa as well. So I hope that this is going to be an interesting session and looking forward to it.
Okay, so developing for tomorrow, not today, is the subject that me and Shahzad are going to be discussing. Developing for tomorrow or developing for the future, in my own opinion, is a very important topic, not only to address, but to deeply think about. The real estate industry, I believe globally, is on a meteoric rise, be it for economical reasons, for overpopulation reasons. Real estate, with all its different sectors, has become one of the focal points where we invest, spend our time, and for that matter, spend our lives. I'm going to begin our discussion, Shahzad, with stating that when thinking about the future and developing for the future, we need to, when you talk about developing real estate, it usually, when you ask anyone, a lot of people are going to say it starts with design. I want to take a step back from that and say that there is a very important step prior to design when thinking about how to develop the future. And that's research, making and doing the proper research. We call it feasibility studies, but feasibility studies deal with numbers, returns on investments. Sometimes it reflects whether the developed project that any developer is about to embark on is well positioned. No, I'd like to add to that when you think about developing any project, or any development for that matter, you need to heavily research the development that you're about to embark on. Will it add value? Will it enhance people's lives? Will it add to the well-being of the community? What do you think about that?
I can't agree with you more. We did a study out in Saudi Arabia, and where we interviewed about 1,000 families, new homeowners, potential new homeowners, and we asked them what is critical for you when you're looking to buy a new residential development or when you're looking to buy a new house. And it's surprising that people were talking about, I want connectivity, number one. Second point that came was that we need to be closer to a good school. We need good quality of air in our neighborhoods. I mean, these were things that, we couldn't even perceive. We just thought that, it has to be glitz and glamoury, but no. People are talking about very basic stuff, They wanted healthcare within the cornerstone of their communities. They wanted retail anchors very close by. And of course, connectivity to their workplace. So these are the things, and of course, green spaces, walkability, all these things came to light. And if we are not able to position our developments that way, if we are not able to create designs that meet those requirements, then our developments will fall short. And I think this is like you pointed out. I mean, research is the cornerstone of making a successful development going forward. And our research also does show that people are considering this even in Saudi Arabia, which is a new. I mean, it's an old market, but the thing is that a lot of changes are happening now. And of course, the UAE over here and the GCC, the rest of the region, especially after the pandemic, all these things are making a lot more noise. When we say that, and these things should be at the core of the development when we start.
That's very interesting because I don't know if everyone here agrees, but the average real estate customer nowadays is much more educated than what he or she used to be 10 years ago. Nowadays, people know what they want in terms of financially, in terms of the end product. They're more well educated about the specific standards of what a good real estate product is today. So researching what these needs are, I believe, are at the cornerstone of what any developer should focus on prior to design. I'd also like to take our conversation to the actual design itself. Designers today have a huge responsibility, a very big one, in terms of translating what the market needs are in terms of customer needs and well-being and modern technologies, how to utilize all the benefits that we as different societies have today into their designs. I could use as an example in the commercial space, post the pandemic, or as we stand now, commercial spaces, a lot of designers need to think about how to make the workspace as flexible as possible, to have the workspace ready with digital collaborative tools, because the hybrid workspace has not been something that has been around prior to the pandemic. Maybe it has been around, but not to that extent, not to the extent that we're seeing today. So this is one area that I believe designers should focus on when it comes to the commercial space.
In addition to that, I mean, there should be when we're looking at it from an end product point of view, a lot of commercial space is leased, not sold, right? And then, and you have a lot of investors who are looking to acquire commercial space and quality commercial space. And a lot of funds are now become green funds. So there has to be, LEED certification, right? We need to have a good well score as well in order for the product to be actually commercially viable to be able to be sold to end investors as well. But so that also has to form the core of this. And I was talking to a few investors who are looking to make developments, and they're saying that we want our buildings to be smart, because smart buildings help ensure longevity in the product, and also help reduce costs of actually maintaining it. Yes, I do realize that at times having a LEED score or making a building smart may have implications on the overall construction cost of the product. But the thing is that it creates and ensures that your tenants are going to remain sticky in the place.
So I'd like to build on what you said with 2 points. One of them is with regard to design, emphasizing on the importance of design. For example, I just spoke about the commercial space. What designers need to, or us as real estate developers need to realize and start emphasizing on, is well-being of developments, the happiness that developments help to give to their end users, be it in the residential space, in the commercial space, in the retail space. I can use an example for what I'm saying with, I believe we all here believe in equal opportunity for both men and women. A lot of the workspace today, especially the physical workspace, should encompass childcare areas, should encompass maternity spaces. These are all things that need to be incorporated into our everyday lives because they're essential, and designers need to start incorporating that. I understand that there's a very thin line between optimizing space and generated revenue out of that space, but when speaking about well-being and efficiency, happiness that the developments produce, these are all things that we need to look into.
For sure. I mean, now commercial buildings need to be looked at as a one-stop solution, you know, whereby people can bring their kids over, there are creches there, there are nurseries there, so that, you know, the kids can spend the rest of the time, and the population and the people who are working there can actually be optimized in terms of workflow. The other thing is about having smart buildings in terms of technology as well. When you talk about technology in smart spaces, is contactless. I mean, especially due to the pandemic, you know, contactless entry into the building, right? Whilst having all the security features in place. In terms of connection and ensuring that, you know, I mean, there was such a simple example given to me the other day by an individual who was like, you know what, I need to be able to know exactly how many times a toilet is flushed in which common area in my building. So I was wondering why. I mean, is he talking about just maintenance of the toilet space? But he's like, no, I mean, I want to ensure that I can have more people in that particular area to make sure that it's properly sanitized and cleaned. Whilst there are areas within the building that have more downtime in certain areas. So we can utilize less human resources to actually do more work out there. And the other thing was about contactless entry. They're talking about having to ensure that, you know, people are not touching the elevator. So that helps elevator buttons or entry into the building. That helps ensure that people are safe from any sort of you know, like this pandemic, because they get diseases and all these sort of things. So people are really, really careful of that. Even for parking, where is the maximum load for parking that is going on? And when we talk about, you know, connectivity and having the well score, the people are saying, you know what, do I need to only have one internet operator? Can't I have 3 internet operators? Where is the connection maximum in my development? And can the office spaces be more flexible, whereby I can, you know, book certain areas where there is maximum time and then have a minimum office space for myself. So that allows for a lot of flexibility, allows a lot of people to be able to work smart and remotely as well.
I'd like to zoom out on the exact same topic that you just mentioned, specifically the number of flushes, which is generating data. When we're developing for the future, I see a future where buildings, which in essence are the most used product by humans. We use buildings all the time, everywhere, 24 hours a day, be it our homes, our offices, our shopping malls. Generating data, I believe, should be a main focal point where it gets incorporated into the developments that we embark on. Any building that generates data, that collects data, and helps and gives feedback to the managing company or the building manager could be used to help achieve or offer new services, tailored services, customized services, could help the facility teams or the maintenance teams to help actively prolong any development's lifespan. What do you think about generated data?
Most definitely. I mean, data helps drive commerce. You know, at the end of the day, if my building is smart, if the building can carry on meeting the needs of the people, right, it will have a higher yield going forward from a commercial perspective, and people are going to remain sticky. I mean, and having access to data, network, and everything will allow you to offer more and more services. You mentioned the other time, you mentioned that, you know, having retail spaces, having places to communicate and people to interact with each other is also critical, right? If we have a connected building, people can, you know, use their downtime to do shopping for their daily needs, and utilize the time waiting for the elevator all the way down to the parking lot to finish their groceries by the time they get home. All these things are very, very critical now these days. They sound very soft and they sound very nuancical when you're trying to make these developments. But the thing is that it creates value for us, and it creates and ensures that people are spending the maximum amount of time there efficiently.
So it creates engagement.
Correct.
And optimizes our efficiency in terms of time.
Yes, definitely.
I believe to continue the conversation on the emphasis on new technology, BIM modeling, for example, should be incorporated during design. IoT should be looked at as one way to as a new technology to be incorporated during the design stage in any development, for example. Even in we could also go as far as saying VR in terms of real estate sales as a technology to be used, because our mobility has been limited over the past couple of years. Why not use virtual reality, for example, to have a physical visit to a space that I'm thinking about buying? I believe also we started our day-to-day with facility management software is one way new technologies could be used to help us through our daily lives with any facility or property that we are using.
That is correct. And when you talk about virtual reality, I've seen like a product that, the guys like, instead, while your building is being constructed, instead of you having a show space or something like that, they created a VR room. The one show space would cost you close to $2 million. This one VR room costs you about $200,000, give or take, with the software. And then he was like, once you enter the place, even from your lab, it doesn't really have to be that you were wearing those goggles and everything. You can also see it through your laptop. And effectively, you were seeing, okay, when the sun rises, what view am I going to see outside? When the sun is setting, what view am I going to see over here? How is the look and feel? I can do all my spatial planning and all these sort of things within the space. And this effectively makes everything so much more efficient. And people are very receptive of this, and especially the newer generation, they are least bothered about how the building will be developed going forward. They want to see what the end product is, and that's what's going to create their impulse for purchasing or leasing going forward.
One of the things I also think about when we talk about developing for the future is because of the pandemic and because of our limited mobility over the past few years, I believe we should start moving into directions, into stretching our central areas. To be more specific, most of the main developments in any country around the world are going to be focused or based in the major cities. I think we should start focusing on stretching our cities into the outer skirts and providing diversified developments outside of the major cities. It helps to lighten the traffic and the amount of people occupying a certain space at any given time. It also helps contribute to the suburban areas, for example, interactions, a pooled collection of services being offered outside of the major cities, making different services closer to our homes, for example.
That's a really interesting point, and I want to just take a lead onto this. I may be, forgive me if I'm slightly digressing, but the thing is that I'm actually was making a presentation to a healthcare operator who was looking to put a satellite hospital in a different part of town, and they were looking at different master plan communities on where they could potentially place their satellite hospital. And what we did was that we created a geospatial planning, right, about connectivity from their hospital, existing hospital, how fast does it take, and what routes can we take to get to their satellite clinic. And from that satellite clinic or satellite hospital, how long does it take to get to the rest of the city? How easy is it for people to access from within that neighborhood to that particular place? And also, how can that hospital serve the different clinics in that particular area? So, I mean, now that we have this data with us, and we know that this is the shortest amount of time, this is the fastest possible route, and all these sort of things, now the client has, like they say, it's a visibility study, not a feasibility. It's a visibility study. How visible am I? And that's going to future-proof my offering in that particular location. Because if it takes time for me to go from one place to another place, or one hospital to another hospital, or even for a retail mall or some facility like that, I might just say, you know what, it's taking me 20, 25, or 30 minutes more because of the traffic. I may as well, make a pit stop on the right or the left and get my work done and walk away. But because they are planning their development in such a manner that they are able to future-proof it based on the current road infrastructure, the future planning of the city, this makes sure that that particular facility that they are planning will have a continuous footfall into the future.
Building on that point, I think that further emphasizes the importance of research that we started our conversation with. You need to research the area that you're developing really well to understand if there's a market need, if there's a market gap, how can you add value, how can the surrounding community benefit, will it enhance my efficiency in terms of time, in terms of getting from one place to another. In terms of developing for the future, I also think that going green and utilizing renewable energy is still an untapped market. I think there are several countries around the world that are starting to adopt such technologies with their real estate development, but I think there's a huge room for growth, and specifically that area or that part.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, in the UAE, we've got, I think, 2 sustainable cities. One is in Dubai, which has established itself, and one has now come up in Sharjah. I think it's by a development by Shuruk, where the developments have a green spine, right? Where you can grow your vegetable. It's like vertical farming going right through, and vegetables can be used. There's a net zero carbon emission that is going on. The waste from the development can then be used to create electricity, and save on us buying electricity off the grid. All these sort of things do help and make sure that we're sustainable. Our water consumption reduces, our electricity power consumption reduces. And of course, when we are creating such developments, we also need to ensure that that all the needs within the community are met from residential perspective, from communal perspective, in terms of healthy lifestyle, because these are things that are very critical. So it should have enough wellness-driven spaces, to promote active lifestyle. And it should also encompass a bit of commercial angles where people can, instead of going to the office 2 hours in or 1 hour in, are able to connect with like-minded people sitting and, having like a Soho sort of offering in those areas. And also for the children to go to school, for healthcare needs to be met, for retail needs to be met. This will ensure that we can have egalitarian neighborhoods which people can benefit off, both socially and culturally, and also ensure that people are contained, families are contained within a particular area. That ensures that there is not a lot of movement that is going on, and saving a lot of time. Because if we are spending 2 hours in traffic getting to work. 2 hours of our prime energy is just lost, being frustrated, getting from point A to point B.
I'd like to focus on what you just said, and particularly the part where you mentioned net zero carbon initiatives. I think achieving net zero carbon in our future developments, especially in the real estate industry, is a very important aspect to focus on in terms of contributing to our planet, contributing to the well-being of our environment. Real estate developments generate a lot of waste, and without proper mobilization of such waste and dismantling this waste in an efficient manner, I think net zero carbon should be one thing that when we talk about developing for the future, it's not only about the development itself, it's about optimizing the waste that harms our environment with regard to that development.
That is correct. And if we look at it from a very commercial perspective, getting funding, international funding from big funds because of impact financing, because of green initiative financing, if we are creating something that is a catastrophe from a nature's perspective, it will be more and more difficult to do that. So people need to ensure that these things are ingrained within their system, within their planning initially. This will help them get a wider audience in terms of obtaining funds, obtaining in form of debt or equity in order to finance their projects. And of course, the government initiatives are also there so that things are more favorable in for us as an investor. And of course, the people are also looking at these softer factors when they're looking at their new homes.
So Shahzad, we talked about developing the future in terms of the retail sector, the commercial sector, the residential sector. You're from a healthcare, you work in the healthcare industry, and you have a very good healthcare background. Where do you see the healthcare industry going, and what do we need to incorporate when we're developing the future of healthcare?
I mean, healthcare is quite interesting, but I look at healthcare from a very commercial, private sector perspective. The thing is that previously the mindset in the Middle East was that if I don't have a 300-bed hospital, I'm not going to have a hospital, and that is now changing because the technology has changed. How a surgery is done. You can be sitting in Dubai and do a surgery in Ras Al Khaimah, or you can be sitting in South Korea and be doing a surgery in Ras Al Khaimah or Dubai. So the thing is, and plus of course because of technology, space requirements have also reduced, and satellite hospitals and these sort of functionalities are there that not only meet the requirements, and such facilities can be a lot smaller, concise, deal with the requirements of the people, but also in terms of general medicine, but also can work on specialities as well.
That's very interesting because my company in Egypt, we've focused on a lot of retail and commercial mixed-use buildings. And one area that we focus on is how can we integrate technologies like artificial intelligence, for example, within our destinations to help optimize and monitor our buildings. I think this is one step into the direction of achieving fully automated buildings. But I'm intrigued also to know about the new technologies like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, things of that nature. How do you think they're going to be incorporated in the future within the healthcare industry?
I mean, we can talk days on end on this. But the thing is that if I'm to sum this up really quickly, healthcare is moving in that direction. And there are just no two ways about it. It's all about how fast we are able to adopt this in order to ensure that that healthcare is provided most efficiently. I mean, now we're talking about telemedicine, which is coming through, which, I mean, we did a study on if telemedicine really kicks in, how much space impact would it have on a particular healthcare facility? And that drastically cuts down the space requirements. It also changes the shape of a hospital itself physically. But the thing is that prior to jumping into all that, I mean, and what we will need to consider is how well insurance can actually accept such treatment, because without which private healthcare will not be able to adopt to a lot of those changes. You see? So this is a very commercial limitation right now, although there's been a lot of strides for telemedicine and all these sort of things. But these are areas that we need to look at it from a very regulatory aspect.
So do you believe that hospitals of the future are going to get smaller or bigger, given the direction that you have been talking about?
Well, in terms of service offering, they might become a lot bigger, but in terms of actual space requirements, they'll get a lot smaller. I mean, just to give you a perspective so that, you know, this really hits home quickly. In the 1980s, if a person had a C-section, they would be in a hospital for about 28 to 30 days, right? If you had an appendix operation in the 1980s, you would be in a hospital for 2 weeks. You have an appendix operation today, you are out in 24 hours because there's a keyhole surgery and that's it. You just have to wait for just to ensure that there's relevant amount of oxygen and there's no poison flow. In terms of a C-section, because of the equipment and technology that is used, the person is out of the hospital within a day. You see, there are a lot of surgeries that have come up which have now become day surgeries, which were previously surgeries that would require you to stay in the hospital for 10 days. Now, I mean, I was just joking with one of the doctors the other day, he was telling me that, you know what, Sajad, all we do is once the surgery is done, we want the guy to watch some telly for about half an hour, and once he takes a leak, we know he's fine, and he's out. So that cuts, you know, 30 days to a few hours. So yes, when I'm talking about healthcare, yes, the service offerings will increase because of technology, but the space requirements would technically reduce.
Okay, so I think we've started with research, covered design, talked about the different sectors incorporated within the real estate industry. Shehzad, do you want to add any more points?
I mean, it'll be very interesting to understand how the audience has perceived this, and maybe if they have any ideas that we all can take away from. That would be amazing, I think.
Okay, so guys, we finished our discussion. It seems like someone needs to pitch in.
Thanks very much for that discussion. Really interesting. You asked for a share. Something that we're working on back in the UK is a big development where I think they claim they're going to be the first one that's dementia friendly.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
You can't hear, sorry. Is that any better? Right. There's a development back in the UK where, in the spirit of sharing ideas, it's going to be the first one that's officially credited as dementia friendly. So the whole, it's 200 or 300 acres, and it will be constructed with that particular, let's call it a disease, in mind. So just wanted to share that for the room as well.
That's very interesting. Can I ask you a question? What are some of the ways that you are going to achieve this?
I'm not the developer, but actually, so I don't know the full detail, but what I can say is, and it's a theme we'll return to tomorrow, is real consideration given to the role that nature will play within the overall development. So the approach is buildings and nature together, not buildings, then nature, or nature, then buildings. It's a totally integrated approach.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Hi, thank you for the session. My question is that while most of the points that you have talked about is about that when you are developing new cities and new projects around where there is nothing, how do you look at all the important points that came in your research about connectivity and proximity in the existing cities when you are developing project? Because there are things which are out of your control now. Cities have already become overpopulated. There is a lot of congestion, whether we talk about cities in India or we can talk about Dubai to Sharjah morning evenings. You know, the how do you handle these kind of things? Because it is important, a lot of developments are happening within cities right now instead of developing new cities. So new smart cities which are coming in India, of course we can incorporate all the stuff that you're talking. What do you do with current cities?
I think this is a challenge, and I'll leave a lot of the intelligent stuff for Sheriff to respond to. But this is definitely a challenge, and this is a question that we've been posing to a lot of our clients have been posing to us as well. I mean, what are we going to do? But the thing is that I think still a lot of the well score can still be done within an existing building, and if we start well, of course, we'll have to go back to the design and we'll have to go back to the engineers to see how much we can incorporate and how smart we can technically make this building. But the thing is, the other point that we were discussing here is how to make it more relevant to our people. So if we are able to gather that data from within the existing buildings, we can still make those changes going forward and adapt these buildings to meet these needs. And once we've done that, at least we've won half. At least, if nothing, we've at least progressed. And I think that's the idea.
As such, I think real estate has always been futuristic because we are selling products today which are going to come 3 years down the line. So we are already thinking 3 years, 5 years, 7 years down the line. So it becomes even more important to figure out what is going to be the future challenges, whether it is population explosion, whether it is technology. We keep talking about sustainability. The more technology we bring in, the more electricity we consume. But we don't generate that much of electricity which is without carbon emissions. Solar is kicking out slowly. It will still take a lot of time. So, I always feel that there is a contradiction in things that we are talking about, sustainability and technology going in hand. How do you see that?
So let me just check if I correctly understood your question. You're asking, there's always a challenge between how to develop something that is sustainable, yet technologically advanced or up to date, which in essence consumes more energy, which goes against sustainability. I think the best way to achieve sustainability starts with what Shahzad said a couple of minutes ago, is gathering data, analyzing this data, fully understanding how people use buildings, be it residential buildings, commercial buildings, retail buildings, any sector within the real estate market. We need to understand patterns and trends about how we use everyday developments. That way, you can zoom in on areas which need the most efficiency, where you need to optimize the buildings and the way we use these buildings in the most optimum way. So it's a gradual process. It's not a solution that's going to roll out over a day. I want to return also to your previous question when you were talking about how do we integrate smart solutions in heavily populated cities. That also is a very hard thing to do, but there is a way, and it takes time, but it could, one of the ways that could help achieve this, I think we talked about during our discussion, was stretching major cities, trying to decreasing population within our major cities, where it's much easier to, as a government, go into upgrading existing infrastructure. That's from the government point of view. From the developer's point of view, or from the developer's responsibility, you should when you're designing a building, you should focus on making your building easily upgradable, easily integratable. These are all things that you have to look at during design. And as you said, we're designing and developing projects that are going to be handed over within the next 3, 4, 5 years. We're talking about these buildings should be sustainable, efficient, easily upgradable, and being up to date for the next 20 to 30 years. Because every year on year, we're making strides within the technology field. I hope I've answered part of your question.
And you know, I'll give you an example. I was seeing the school development. You know, it was ready, and that school was that school had, let's just put it this way, was trying to improve its bottom line. And then they said that, you know what, we're going to be introducing a lot more technology in our school and all these sort of things, and incur more costs. And you know, I was like, okay, fine, that's great, but what is that going to do? So now this is an existing school building. They adopted this. They adopted adding technology, a lot of technology into their space, and they're like, you know what, Shazad, we now know that during recess or during this playtime, so many school classrooms are actually empty. So we've cut off the power requirements at that time for that particular place. So it's an automatic switch on and switch off. There's basic minimum lighting in those areas. They did that with staff planning as well. They did that with a lot of other stuff. So what technically happened was that they were able to use technology in an existing space to reduce overall consumption. And that actually reduced their requirement of electricity by about 20%. So the thing is that maybe school is not as complicated as a residential building, but the thing is that these savings are possible. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. So, I mean, if we strive towards it, we will be able to get somewhere.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think they're going to run us off stage. So thank you, everyone.